Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. NBA Finals. It's finally here. We've got the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors. I'm joined by Brian Leonard and Ralph Michaels, a couple Cleveland natives. We'll find out if they're going to be homers in this series or if they're going to be looking at Golden State to beat their Cavs. But guys, the playoffs, we've had some good series. You know, the Washington-Boston series was entertaining. Toronto didn't do much with Cleveland, obviously. The Atlanta series earlier wasn't bad. But this is a situation here that, this is what we were supposed to see. We talked at the beginning of the season. It was a foregone conclusion that these were going to be the two teams, and they're here. But, guys, we're looking at a series price of anywhere from, I saw a low of minus 240, you and I were talking last night, to as high as minus 275 around town. What do you guys think as far as the series goes? Brian, I'll start with you.
Well, the funny thing was, before the season started, you just had Chris Andrews on here, and they put something, I believe it was their sports book, where they had Golden State at minus 170 against the field. So Golden State goes the entire season, has a great record, everything's worked out fine, and the line's only moved about 80 cents. So for those guys who are betting the futures, that's why you don't play favorites, your favorite in the futures, because by the time you get to the playoffs, you're getting the best number. And right now, Cleveland, you can get up like 210, 220, whereas in Cleveland all season long was less than 200 a lot of places. So you're actually getting better deal on it now, and they only have to win one series.
Talking to a lot of experts, there's not a lot of people that are giving Cleveland a shot here. You're hearing a lot of people, Ralph, talk about, is this going to be a sweep? Is it going to be 5 games, 6 games? There was a prop bet out there. I know South Point had it where Golden State goes 16-0, and it's still sitting at basically 6-1 if you want to bet the Warriors on a sweep. Do the Cavs have a shot here?
Oh, I think they got a great shot. We talked about in an earlier video, if the Cavs and LeBron keep shooting, 40-some% from the three-point line, they could play with anyone. Basically, we have last year's teams matching up again. Durant added to Golden State. Darren Williams and Korver added to Cleveland. So obviously the edge goes to Golden State. But you still have the returning champion with the best player in the league, with Kevin Love playing like a top 10 player he was back in Minnesota. Kyrie Irving playing better than he ever has. So to me, I think the odds are slanted. They want Cleveland money, and I think there's an edge. Now, one thing I want to bring up about those that might bet Cleveland at 220 or plus 210 in the series, I think for Cleveland to win the series, it's got to go game 6 or 7. I don't think they're going to sweep. I don't think they're going to win in 5. We were at the South Point when they released the games of the year, and these lines were from South Point. But you can bet the Cavs in 6 games at plus 900 and the Cavs in 7 games at plus 600. So instead of betting them for the series, you could bet one of your units on 6 games, one of your units on 7 games. And if the Cavs do win, you'll be either 3-1 or 4.5-1, picking up units over that 220 series play.
Very good point there for that. Brian, I've talked about this with you several times, usually when we were gnawing down some chicken wings or something, but all season.
Pretty much every time I've seen you.
To me, when I look at the Cavs and what they've done this year is they tried to make themselves a mini version of the Golden State Warriors. And even though they won the series last year, they came back from 3-1. In Game 7, came down to, basically 3 pivotal plays. The LeBron block, the Kyrie 3, obviously, and then the play that people don't talk enough about, the pass behind the back from Steph Curry that he threw it out of bounds. To me, those are the 3 plays that decided that game. And, it could have went either way. And you look at this and what they did to become the Warriors, a more faster-paced team, try to play, run the floor and take, the open shots, the threes and so forth. Yeah, that made them roll through the East. But when you're trying to do something that somebody else has been doing for a long time. We talk about it in football. Baylor was that team in Oregon that ran, those type of offenses. And then teams started to mimic them. And they were doing good until they matched up against the team that does it the best. You can't beat somebody that's been doing it a lot longer than you. And that's where I have a hard time of finding a way for the Cavs to win this.
Yeah, I don't give the Cavs much of a chance. I think they win Game 3 back at home, and they lose 4-1 in the series. Actually, I've got a nice bet. Well, at least I thought it was a nice bet. I've got a parlay. Golden State has to win Game 1 and then win the series at -115. Well, they're a 7-point favorite in Game 1. They're 320 favorite. And if they win Game 1, Cleveland would have to win 4 out of 6. And they're the lesser team. And we're looking at a Golden State team who's 27-1, and most of those games are against playoff teams.
Right.
So you've got a very good team at Golden State. And to me, the whole thing comes down to defense. Cleveland's got 3 of the worst defensive players in the NBA, in Kyrie, in Korver, and in Love. And Love and Kyrie are going to play a lot in this. Korver, we'll see how much time he gets. But Golden State is number 1 in the NBA defending the three-pointer. Cleveland has been living on three-pointers. If you've watched the Cleveland games, the Bostons, the Torontos, even the Atlantas had a lot of open three-pointers. They just missed them. Whether they don't have the talent for it, or whether they were just nervous, or it wasn't Cleveland's defense. I believe somebody told me a quote that 40% of the three-pointers in the Boston series were considered wide open. Golden State hits wide open three-pointers. That's why I don't give Cleveland much of a chance here. And as you mentioned, they're trying to copy and play what Golden State does. And if they go to the half court, it probably gives them a little bit better chance, because obviously you're going to have a lesser. When you've got one team who's better than you are,
You want to limit possession.
you want to limit possessions. But Durant can hit the threes. He's going to pull Thompson out to guard him, which gives Cleveland who underneath. Love's a great rebounder, but he's not a defender in the paint. Cleveland has no defenders in the paint. I also think Game 1, I saw Golden State 116.5 points. I think the over in that is a good bet too. But being a Cleveland fan, I'd love to see Cleveland compete. I'd more like to see them win, except for as a bettor, my bankroll says they're not going to win.
Right. There's one other interesting prop out you and I were talking about last night, Golden State on the number of games, and they put the over-under for this series. Will it be 5.5? You can bet over 5.5 or under 5.5, and that's a bet that was offshore first. They do more, unique bets. What do you think of that one?
I actually talked to Chris. I was in there the other day, and I said, "Hey, can you put this up? I could play it offshore,
Yeah.
gray area,
Yeah.
or I could play it here in town." And they haven't put it up yet, but 5.5, you can bet it offshore. Under it, like plus 150, 160, lesser in some other places. But if Cleveland wins 2 games in this series, I'd be surprised. But to me, it's a great bet on Golden State if you want to get a little bit more of a payback there. But the under 5.5 games at plus 150, 160.
All right, so we know where Brian's standing. You're going to stay the homer, or are you going to?
You know what? It's something that I wouldn't bet either team. I think Golden State has the edge, but I don't want to lay 220 with them because you got the best player. And I'm going to just disagree with you guys for 1 second. You guys are talking about the Cavs emulating Golden State's offense. I think the Cavs are actually better at it because LeBron's a better player running the ball, and we've seen what LeBron can do when he's at the top of the key with that ball, passing off to the three-pointers or then driving to the lane. Curry doesn't do that. Thompson doesn't do that. So I think that offense actually has made LeBron a better player, and it's the reason the Cavs can compete with him.
I can give you merit for that. I still got to go back to the defensive side, though, and I just don't think Cleveland matches up defensively. And everybody's looking at the last series where it was the number 1 seed versus the number 2 seed against Boston, in the way Cleveland just absolutely, totally dominated them. Boston was a beat-up team at that point of the season. Isaiah Thomas was not 100% and didn't play the last several games. This is a team that had went 7 games against Washington. They looked gassed when this series started. And I go back to the first series against Indiana, and I saw too many times where Indiana was staying in games. Even though Cleveland swept them, Indiana was staying in games because they were able to score on Cleveland. And Indiana's not an offense like Golden State's.
I had mentioned Atlanta. I meant Indiana. Indiana was right in there. Indiana played a good series, and I didn't think Indiana played that well in the series, to be honest with you. But you talk about the inside-outside game. when they're able to drive. I love Kyrie. I think he's just the greatest ball handler I've ever seen. But when you flip the ball out, a lot of times it's blind. If you look at the players, they know where the guys are going to be, and it's blind passes. The turnovers are going to be very high for Cleveland because Golden State can get to those guys around the 3-point line where the other teams couldn't. And LeBron's biggest drawback he could be the best player ever. I don't like his passing. He just too many turnovers.
Last counter I'm going to make again to argue with you two. What a shock. I think Golden State went 12-0 in the playoffs. They haven't been challenged. They haven't lost a game. They have had no adversity. And remember, they were down 30 points with Kawhi Leonard playing. The next game,
That's not diversity? They're down 30 points and they come back and win?
And Kawhi got hurt.
Well, he got hurt.
Leonard got hurt.
Anybody to come back in the
But
playoffs.
I'm saying the best player who could have been the MVP got hurt, and then they won the series. So they've had no adversity. Cleveland lost the game. I think that actually helps them. Losing that game to Boston, they came back, they rallied back. Golden State loses a game at home, and all of a sudden you've got a lot of people with all the pressure in the world. I mean, Durant has more pressure on him than any player in the NBA this year, because if he loses a championship after going to Golden State, oh my God, what's going to happen? So I think Golden State is pressure-packed. If Cleveland finds a way to win one of those first two games, I think they win the series.
Cleveland wins game one, it's a different series.
Yeah.
I don't think it happens.
All right, guys. All right, guys, we're going to be back with another video where we're going to actually break down game one and find some bets for you in game one. If you want to jump on board this weekend and save $10 at Wager Talk, use coupon code NBA Finals and the number 10. That's NBA Finals and the number 10, and you can save $10 on any package this weekend at Wager Talk. We'll be back with more here at wagertalk.com.